Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are adopted. Item number 1. Tuscaloosa Police Department retention presentation and proposal. Mayor Maddox, you present.
Yes, sir, Councilor Busby, and we appreciate you allowing us to get this on the agenda so soon. I was telling a group on Friday as we were discussing this, that in my time as mayor, probably the 2 greatest challenges that I have faced have been the tornado of April 27, 2011, and COVID. I am now ready to say that ensuring that we have a fully operational police department is now the 3rd greatest challenge that I believe that I have faced, at least in my tenure with the city of Tuscaloosa. That's how serious I think the challenge is in front of us, and why we felt it was necessary to move forward with a pretty broad and, quite frankly, in this expensive investment into the Tuscaloosa Police Department. So if we can pull up the presentation itself. We titled it Staying Strong. And one of the things that we are appreciative of at the Tuscaloosa Police Department, and I know this is something that Chief and I have talked about a lot, is what this council has done for the Tuscaloosa Police Department since 2021. This council passed one of the most, the most expensive at the time, pay plan in the city's history for law enforcement and for Tuscaloosa Fire and Rescue. You recently just approved $5,000 sign-on bonus within TPD with a $2,500 referral bonus. Take-home cars for our patrol division, which was upfront a $3 million investment with another $1.5 million in operational year. And then you have taken on the challenge of RSA conversion, which for both fire and police, which will be the most expensive city investment in its entire history. That's the size and significance of what this council has invested, not only into TPD, but also in Tuscaloosa Fire and Rescue. And your investments have paid off. When you look, and as you may have read in the last week's Mayor's Minute, when you go to social media and you go to and you look at it, it's hard to judge when someone says crime is down, but crime is down in Tuscaloosa. This is the data that we report to the FBI each and every year. And one of the things that makes it even more remarkable is that since my first year as mayor, we have grown by more than 25,000 people as a city. If our growth were a city alone, it would be one of the top 25 biggest cities in Alabama, to give you some sense of just how much we have grown as a community. And so for TPD to achieve what they've achieved, it certainly makes us all very proud of what we've been able to do as a community. And really, certainly there have been partners, but I give Chief Swindle, Chief Anderson, Chief Blankley, and all the men and women during that time the credit for being able to make certain that crime is down in our community. And even when you look over the last 4 years at the major crimes in our city, they continue to be down. It doesn't mean we're not focused on that. It doesn't mean that it's never far from us. When 41% of the city's general fund budget actually goes into public safety, certainly you know where our heart is by where we're making the investments. But we should all take a step back and recognize the amazing work, the strength of the Tuscaloosa Police Department. And when you think about a city department that responds to citizens, last year, in 2022, we responded to 93,027 calls, an average of 255 average calls per day. I maybe got a handful of complaints. You probably, I would assume, got a handful of complaints. What business has that many interactions and so few complaints? And when TPD responds, it's not, most of the time, it's not to get a cat out of a tree, you know? It is because something bad is happening. Somebody is concerned, whether it's a DV case, whether it's a missing child, God forbid it's a homicide. our police officers are responding into the most difficult situations. Mr. Fell, I don't have to tell you because you lived it every day. The things that you see in the significant event reports that you receive every day gives us all a glimpse of what the men and women of the Tuscaloosa Police Department are responding to. And I'm very proud of our response times, especially in this uncertain atmosphere. But as I mentioned earlier, this wouldn't be the third greatest challenge that we faced or I faced in my career with the city if there wasn't a challenge, and we have one. Today we are 60 officers short. We have 291 full-time equivalents of sworn police officers. Between the vacancies, which are near 40, and those in training as of this morning, it equals 60. Those that are in training are officers that are APOS certified, that are getting APOS certified or in their first year of employment. Because our training standards are so rigorous, we normally do not let an officer out by themselves until after their first year. We have never compromised on our training standards. And again, I give Chief Swindle and Chief Anderson and Chief Blankley the credit. Those leaders have always told me we never sacrifice on training. That's how you become a Minneapolis. That's how you become a Ferguson. That's how you become a Baltimore, is when you sacrifice on the quality of the hires that you make and the training that you provide your officers. But the fact of the matter is we're 60 officers short. We're at 82% operational capacity today. Making matters worse, 73% of our patrol division has less than 5 years of experience. We do not have a lot of experience within the division itself that touches the majority of the personnel or the majority of the people in our community. So why are we in this position? We've attempted to either quantify or qualify 4 reasons, but there is an overarching theme that none of us can get lost, and that is that nationwide law enforcement is not a very popular profession.
That's right.
Especially following the death of George Floyd. Law enforcement itself is just not attractive. We have very few applicants come in, very few that can meet our qualifications. And that is something that is just not isolated to the city of Tuscaloosa. This is a nationwide phenomenon that we all have to acknowledge and accept. That is to me a cloud that's over everything that we are trying to do at this point. But what we've tried to do in this presentation is also localize why we believe we're in this position as well. First, we're policing bars instead of protecting neighborhoods. And that is, to me, when you look at the data, it's a dynamic that we have got to change, and it leads to another problem that I'll discuss in a second. The city of Tuscaloosa is 70.3 square miles. Within our city, we have 39 bars and gastropubs. We have 29 of those within our downtown and university corridor. Last year, in 22, of all the revenue those 39 generated was $2.3 million.
Can you save this slide for admin and policy?
Please, my
later
exact
on?
thoughts, thank you. I
Go ahead.
would love.
And this is not an attack on bars.
No, I understand.
This is just showing you where we're having to pour in resources.
Please, we'd
So-
like to see that now.
Non-event overtime. This is not event for game days, which we know we have to do. 16 amphitheater shows a year, 8 or 9 live at the plazas, 6 weeks of holidays on the river, TTF special events. That doesn't include any of that stuff. Just alone in that University Boulevard strip corridor, we anticipate $750,000 just in overtime. That's not asset value costs. That's not the personnel that are already assigned to that shift that are in that area. We are pouring in a lot of resources to be the entertainment hub of West Alabama. It comes certainly with a positive, but it also comes with the negative of us having to provide an inordinate amount of police assets and resources. And then you look at what we've seen since the beginning of this year, 11 applications for bars and gastropubs, which I think which I believe led to your decision that I support of let's create a freeze, a moment in time, so that we can put together some recommendations to help really lessen the density of bars and gastropubs, especially in that downtown University Boulevard corridor. We also have another factor here locally that we have to deal with. That's officer burnout. Those events that I talked about earlier, the mandatory overtime for UA events. Right now, or yesterday, Chief was telling me that officers are offering other officers up to $150 to take a mandatory shift of overtime, just so they don't have to work it. UA sports, graduations, amphitheater concerts. Because we have a lot going on in Tuscaloosa, because we are the community's hub for entertainment, our officers are being forced to work these events. And we live in an environment now of active shooters. We live in an event where it's a little bit more dangerous. We just cannot not have police officers out there protecting the public. The other dynamic change of this is that officers value family time instead of overtime. Mr. Fell has heard me tell this story, as some of our other team members have. When I was first elected mayor, I met with a group of police officers who were angry that they weren't getting enough overtime.
We would fight for it.
They felt that the brass were getting all the overtime and the lower level weren't getting any of the overtime. And so the dynamic has changed. This new generation of workforce, they want to work their 40, 45 hours a week, and they want to go home. They're not interested in what the overtime check can bring to them. And we're seeing our officers are exhausted. They are burned out. We are working them time and time again. And with each vacancy means someone else has to step up. I see we got members of our school board here. It's like teachers in a classroom. You have to have a teacher in the classroom. You have to have a police officer on the beat. There's just no letting that vacancy ride. The next challenge that we face is salary competition. Now, just 2 years ago, we were number one in the state of Alabama, the table to the left that says police. Today, we are number 8. We're number 3 in our own county. Recently, the university just announced a starting salary of $65,000. That's for no experience, not being a post. So the majority of our officers that would qualify for that would come in actually at $71,000. That's almost $20,000 higher than our starting pay. So you think about the dynamic that's created. Now, I commend the university for wanting to pay their police officers that type of salary. I certainly wish we could afford to do that and sustain it over time. But it has certainly created now a new dynamic in the marketplace for the value of police officers. And we have to acknowledge that reality, especially in a dynamic where, again, an officer values their family time over overtime. If I can have a base salary higher and have more time off, that is a tough dynamic to compete against for the city of Tuscaloosa. On the other side, just because we always get the fire and police. As of this year, we are still number 1 in the state. Northport is right there with us, but as Chief Blankley reminded me, and I'm sure Chief Smith would echo in, if you factored in Northport's cheaper health insurance benefit, they're probably, in terms of total package, ahead of us on both fire and police. And by the way, I'm going to get to my editorial point. Because we do so much for the community, we don't get the luxury of investing more in our employees. We have to run the airport. We have to provide Mercedes fire protection. We are called upon to do those things, which ultimately means less we can ultimately do for our own employees where other jurisdictions don't have those responsibilities to the greater community. And so when you look at UAPD's new salary schedule in particular, again, The majority of our officers that applied and would be hired would come in at $71,000, which would be $20,000 base salary higher. Plus, with a signing bonus, their total compensation is $78,740. Today, of the 261 positions we have at TPD, 182 of our officers' base salary is below $80,000. Now, a lot of our officers will make more of that in terms of total compensation because of the mandatory overtime that we're forcing officers to work. But base salary, 182 of our 261 officers make below $80,000. Certainly, RSA conversion plays a role in what we're up against. Now, here's the good news, and I put this in as an informational slide for the council and the public. As of today, I think this number will be higher once we get the actuary's updated report. When we move to RSA conversion, that's going to be an annual cost of 8.1. Again, I think that number is going to be a little bit higher than that. It will provide each of our officers an additional $10,000, officers and firefighter, $10,986 annual benefit, and they will see a decrease of $2,362 in conversion. Right now, if we had to make a recommendation to the city council, we're 3 years away from RSA. In our financial modeling, we believe that probably the optimal date for us to go in and be able to sustain that for the next 40 to 50 years would be October 1st, 2026. That's today. Again, we've got a lot more work to do. We as a staff haven't come to a conclusion, so we're not close to having a recommendation for the city council. We believe that immediate action is required. So we would recommend a $10,000 officer retention bonus. This would be for our non-probationary employees. So employees that are currently working for us that are non-probationary, once they moved into non-probationary status, those that are probationary move into non-probationary status, they then would qualify for the $10,000 retention bonus. In return for the immediate payout of that, you would sign a 2-year agreement to stay with the city of Tuscaloosa and the Tuscaloosa Police Department, or be obligated to repay that back to the city if you decided to leave. I want to be clear in saying that this is not a long-term solution. This is about trying to make certain we give the council, with the police department, the city council, time to really look at how we adjust to the new and evolving dynamic of law enforcement itself and the pay and compensation surrounding it. This investment would cost $3.2 million, and it would be a 1-year, 18% increase on average for our employees' benefit. So how would we pay for it? This year, we have $1.5 million anticipated in TPD salary savings. We've also have $177,000 that we have not appropriated for special bonuses within TPD. And then through other citywide salary savings, another $1.4 million. So we would fund this out of 23's fiscal budget by using the anticipated salary savings, with the lion's share of that coming from TPD's salary savings itself. So in large part, their salary savings are funding the very bonus which they would receive. We present this today because public safety is absolutely positively our top priority. And one of the things that I failed to mention as we localize our recruitment concerns, and I do not blame our competitors, but UAPD, Northport Sheriff's Office, they use against us that if you come to work for TPD, you're going to be in an urban environment dealing with urban issues. 30 weekends a year, go home, you can kiss the family goodbye because you're working, in addition to your other schedule. And our pay and benefits is either now significantly higher or as good as what you're getting at the Tuscaloosa Police Department. This is our challenge. We were certainly, I do not believe I would be making this recommendation today if it wasn't for the announcement a couple of weeks ago. But when 12 of our officers immediately began the process of inquiring into HR regarding benefit transfers, following a news release regarding the new pay plan, we felt it was necessary to show a strong sign of support to our officers that we acknowledge this new dynamic. We're going to invest to try to make it happen. I'm going to stop here because I know there's going to be some questions. Chief and his command team is here to answer any questions, and Ms. Standridge and her team are here to answer any questions. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to present this today, and we look forward. We're not asking for any vote today. We certainly would, as I emailed, would like to see a vote come up to be scheduled next week on finance, and then the following week to the city council. So, Mr. Busby, we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Chief, is there any remarks you want to make to open it up?
I first just want to thank the mayor, the council, finance committee, everybody who's worked on this. I don't have to tell y'all what we do every day. I think you know it. We're one of the only employees in the city that gets spit on a daily basis, that gets in fights on a daily basis, that break bones on a daily basis. All these gentlemen over here, every one of us have broken bones for the city. Y'all have been amazing to help compensate us for that. But when you have other agencies that do less work than we do in a better working environment and don't face the same things we do, and then the salary schedule that comes on top of that, it's tough to keep officers. I know we've had 5 to 6 officers already interview over at University of Alabama. I had one officer, he's an amazing officer. He's actually, if you walk out that hallway right there, he's on a big poster board out there with his dog who says he just can't pass this up. Some of the other officers we've talked to about the $10,000 bonus, and they said, wow, the city's looking at doing this. This is amazing. I'll think about staying. I'm not going to sit up here and act like $10,000 is going to fix all this. It's not. But one thing it does is I do know police officers, if they've got a project at home or they're wanting to buy something, it's enough to, I think, keep some of them here. It's a Band-Aid. As far as the salary schedule, I've talked to most all of you individually, and I would have never imagined 18 years ago that police would change the way it has. Nobody wants to do this job, and quite frankly, for some people, I can't blame them. When you go to work every day and you're in a fight nonstop, it's like, man, can I go do something else for this money? But we're lucky here because we do have men and women that come here every single day that love doing this job and wouldn't trade anything for it. But I believe that we've also got to look at the future because, as the mayor said, this isn't a fix. This is a holding pattern that I believe when we do this, we can keep officers here and keep them from going to UA and other places. The one thing that we do compete with and a problem we have is we don't have RSA right now. If somebody leaves from Northport and goes to the University of Alabama or goes to another agency, they can pull from a smaller department. We can't do that. Nobody's going to leave a 7, 8, 9 year retirement with RSA to come to police department to start over at 25 years. So we have that going against us. That's hurting us really bad, and y'all have been very supportful of saying, hey, we are going to go to RSA and we're going to make that happen. But right now that is a issue that we have. We just really like your consideration, on these bonuses. These guys work hard every day. The other thing is, like the mayor said, we're 60 officers short once you do the training. These guys and girls are having to make up for that every single day. It's not like we're just like, hey, we can't do this. They're working harder and harder every day to do that. And, they're burning out quick. To this, it's also not only a retention, but a morale thing of, hey, look, the city's looking out for you. And I will answer any questions that I can answer and my command staff can answer as well.
First of all, thank you. And y'all, and your men and women too. People who don't know what it's like to have brave people show up armed to take care of you are missing out. It's a big deal. I think this council's action has reflected the reality of what, we have not said no to a single thing. Not only have we not said no, we've said yes unanimously. So that speaks louder than any yak I can do up here about the value we place on that. I will say we're somewhat caught off guard that we've dipped into a crisis, have to do something. We've known about the shortage. That didn't sneak up on us. Has something changed?
Yes, sir. UA changed the game. And I'm just going to speak, we work with UAPD every single day. The problem is if you have another job in the city, you hire somebody in, 3 weeks later, they kind of learn that job. With us, it's a year to year and a half before they're by themselves. If we lose 6, 7, 8, 9 officers, we're in trouble. I'm not going to sugarcoat that because the problem is it takes a year and a half to replace that person. And that's what's caused this. I know I've got about 11 people that's applied. I know at least 6 have interviewed so far. One's already been hired. We can't afford to lose 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 officers. Because if we do that, we're going to have to pull those officers from somewhere to put them on the streets for that year and a half. And that's going to be in cases that aren't going to be solved. That's going to be schools that aren't going to be as protected. It is a crisis because they've changed the game. Birmingham, my recruiter told me today, they're just putting out a new package. It's a premium for officers right now, and I never thought I'd see it. But UA changed the game. They changed the dynamics. And where Northport and the county, if they have people go over, they can pull more from RSA. They can get that officer that's been in a small department or another department for 6 and 7 years. They put them through a 2-month training. That's it. Man, they're good to go. We can't do that because we're not going to get the officers from other places. We've hired 1 A-post officer this year. That's it. Because they're just not coming here because of the retirement package. So if you put Northport and the county up here, they're worried right here losing people. We're up here because we can't replace them near as quick.
And I want to add to the emergency, as Chief said, was UAPD, and it's just not the immediate. UAPD, to their credit, I believe, and Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, is hiring 20 additional officers on top of a force that was near 80, if not a little bit above 80. So they're probably as large as the sheriff's department, I would suspect.
UA's goal is to go to 102. I think they were in the 60s when they started this process.
And so not only are we talking about for their existing officers, they're increasing their FTEs by 20. And our concern is over the next 2 to 3 years with such a higher pay schedule, if we lose 4 or 5 officers, that especially where we are today, impacts us. I think this, as Chief said, I believe what we're proposing buys us 6 months to 2 years. That would be a range. And if I were on the council and the mayor presented me a $3.2 million 6 to 2 year solution, I would have pause. But PD is at the core of what we do every single day. We are also going to need time to develop something to recognize the change in market value. Not only is the pay difference been influenced, we ask our officers to do more than these other agencies. We have to acknowledge that to attract them, because even just staying even with our competitors, I don't think we can match UAPD. But just staying even, some levels with the county and Northport doesn't change the equation of that 40 hours. I can go work 40 hours there and go to an Alabama football game. Our officers, they get to stand outside the stadium for the luxury of 16 hours a day. That's the dynamic we're faced with, and it used to be not a problem because officers of the past wanted that overtime. The officers of today do not want that responsibility. On top of Amphitheater Live at the Plaza, holidays on the river, Druid City Arts Festival, graduations, Bama Bound, you name it.
Yeah,
we ask them to serve.
And also, I know in recruiting, I'm sure one of y'all is thinking to yourself, what are y'all doing in recruiting? I'm glad y'all asked that question. So I've got 2 pages of every recruiting event we've won.
I was just about to ask that.
Chief.
It was coming. I felt it.
Did you
So
talk to him,
I've
Chief?
got 2 full-time recruiters. That's all they do is go to recruiting events, 2 and 3 times a week. All over the state, all over Georgia, every military event that's coming out or putting people out. So we're maximizing, and Dr. Rush's team helps us every single day trying to recruit. We pay, a web service as well. We're doing everything we can on recruiting, but if you look at that new hire test results at the top I just showed you, in January, 15 applied, 8 tried out, all 8 failed the background check. 0 hired. February, 20 applied, 8 tried out, 6 failed the background, 2 hired. It's month after month. In June, 36 applied, 9 tried out, 9 all failed the hiring process. We hired 0. We're not changing our standards. And when I'm talking about failing the background, they can't pass the PT, or they can't pass the written test, or their polygraph they fail. So we have a standard that we're not willing to move on, but the quality of applicants that we're getting, you don't want on the street, because that's how you end up on CNN and YouTube and everywhere else. And we're not willing to sacrifice our standard that we have at the police department for that. This standard is held true, but some of the simple stuff they can't pass. This new generation cannot pass it.
And Mr. Just one, I apologize, Mr. Wilson. One thing I think is important. And we certainly want to pass this, but moving forward, Mr. Busby and I really appreciated your time on Friday when we talked about this. We're going to have to reevaluate our priorities over the next 3 to 5 years to meet this moment. They're just the things that we wanted to accomplish. I think some of those things we're just going to have to pause and address the long-term part of this to deal with public safety. And I want the council to know that I am absolutely committed to that. It is the responsible thing to do as both the mayor, but also as a citizen of this community, that when I pick up the phone and call 911, I don't want to have to wait 10, 15, 20 minutes for a police officer to respond. Mr. Wilson.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor and Chief, for your opportunity to show us this presentation. Mr. Chairman, I want to go on record today of saying we need to do this to help our police officers. A couple of days ago, I was getting ready to go to bed and heard shots in my community, and went out to where that shooting was, that it took place. 2 young men shooting each other like it was a bonanza. And there's a dynamic shift, there's a cultural shift that's happening within our city. And listening to those older people say, you know, we don't want this in our community, we're tired of this. And Chief came out there. Those officers should have been able to do their job, but because of the choices that some people make, they had to be out there at a scene where 2 people had gotten shot in the chest. We want a safe community. Our police officers, it takes innovation, skill, tenacity, bravery, and desire to do this job. I wouldn't want their job. No, but I do think that we will have to, in the next 3 to 5 years, begin to think about what does public safety look like? What does policing look like? I can't speak for nobody else's district, but I want, when I call the police, I want them to be able to come to our rescue and to come in our community. And I'm afraid if we don't do something, that might not happen.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Yeah, go
Can I
ahead.
say something? First off, I just, Chief, want to thank all of y'all for what you do, because you have a very, very difficult job. And when you get on the city council or whatever city in America, I don't think you really understand what goes into a lot of the things that make our city be successful. We are blessed to have a dedicated police and fire department. And that I think everybody would agree with that.
Yeah.
When we first got on the council, I'm going to go back to what the mayor had in his slides. We've been here 2 years, roughly. We passed pay plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
We committed to go to RSA. We committed to do take-home cars. We added sign-on referral bonuses. Now we're looking at doing a retention bonus. And the thing that worries me the most is it's not enough. Because I don't think this is gonna solve your problem 100%, and I think all of us wanna know, well, what is gonna solve that problem? And
Right.
I mean, one of the things we were talking about earlier is, one of the biggest things used against us, money is important. I think some of the working conditions probably is important. Retirement is a big deal, because if you had the retirement that everybody else has, you would have a bigger pool of people to pull from that wouldn't probably have to go through the training
Yes, sir.
that you have to get them on the street, right? But it is so important for us as a city to, if we don't have a safe city, if we don't have people feeling good about what's happening in our city, that is gonna spill over into everything else. Economic
right.
development, if people aren't gonna wanna come here, students aren't gonna wanna come here. I mean, this is one of the critical issues that we have facing us as a city.
Right.
And there is no doubt about that. And I for one, I think everybody sitting at this table supports you guys. We wanna make sure we find a way to make all these things work. One question I am gonna ask you though is, and I hate that my frame of reference a lot of times trucking, apologize on this, but I remember for many, many years as I had my own business, we never had to recruit. I never spent any money on advertising, right? It was somebody's working for me and us, and they went out there and called their friends or recommended, this is a great place to go to work, right? And I'm sure that still happens today in some ways. But everything changed 5, 6, 7 years ago. I don't care what industry you're in, everything changed, right? And when I was talking to the mayor about this, and I think when I talked to you yesterday, Chief, we had to start recruiting, and then we had to start paying firms, for example, to bring us, I would say, qualified applicants. Now, whether they drive a truck or whatever they do for us, that kind of gets them in the process potentially to be hired, right? My question, and I'm glad LaShonda's here too, is have we taken a critical look at how we are recruiting? Is there anything that we're missing? Do we have people looking at this? I feel like I know the answer, but since the world has changed, we're gonna have to change probably even more to recruit people. So I mean, can you address that? Because that's really been on my mind a lot since we talked.
Yes, sir. I'll address it and I'll let LaShonda follow up on hers. I've talked to a lot of chiefs around the state of Alabama, and even when I was at the FBI Academy across the nation. When I got hired 18 years ago and my command staff got hired, you had a pool of applicants. They were coming to you. We were hiring new people out of college, out of the military. That's changed. Now a lot of the hirings are coming from other agencies. As a society, I think for our younger officers, we're now a generation of safe spaces and people that can't deal with stress. And I don't know anywhere where to put it, but this job isn't a safe space. It's a lot of stress, and a lot of people just don't want to do it. So around the state of Alabama, across the country, it used to be, hey, get people 21 years of age, they go to the academy, they come back. Now you're looking for these 28, 29-year-olds that's done it at a little agency. Hey, come over here, you can make more money, the benefits are better. You can fly a helicopter, you can work in narcotics, you can work in homicide, stuff the little agencies don't have. So that has shifted in the recruiting game as far as trying to get new people versus trying to steal from other agencies. And like I said, with UA, that's what they're doing, and they're being very successful at it right now.
And I was telling Mr. Crow earlier, the quote I always say, the answer is money. What's the question? Is according to the university, is that they have over 100+ applicants for these jobs of experienced candidates, not just applicants, experienced candidates, and they've changed the market dynamic to their credit. I don't think we've had 100 applicants in a year.
Not good ones.
and certainly not experienced ones. That shows, if you're willing to put the money, that you can increase your pool of qualified. Now that's one test sample, right? That's not, but that's one sample that we can look at to say that's a dynamic change that we have to look in the future. And one of the things, regardless of, one of the things coming out of this, I hope that the you and I talked, Mr. Busby, that maybe you as chairman of finance, Ms. Howard as chairman of public safety, and Mr. Fell as chairperson of administrative committee, if we could begin working together with our team members at the city and begin looking at law enforcement and compensation for the future. Because that's where we're gonna have to lean into
I agree.
after we get through this.
And not just a Band-Aid type of thing.
Today's a Band-Aid, make no
That's
mistake
right,
about
that's
it.
right.
And Counselor, to kind of answer yours, we send recruiters to schools about the latest recruiting and all that kind of stuff. I don't know of a company that exists that's been successful, because you're looking at, all major cities are down 100, 200 cops. We went to different programs because the new generation, they don't like to talk in person. They want to text. So we actually text the applicants. Yes, we went there. We had one person that just applied that didn't want to talk to us on the phone. And he was too stressed out to talk to us on the phone. So
Oh, yeah, we want him.
we text him a little bit. We're like, hey, dude, you're not for us.
Get the job.
But y'all would not believe some of the things. We had one applicant passed everything else, but said, hey, I was so nervous I got high this morning and smoked weed on the way to my polygraph.
Was that wrong?
Apparently. But I mean, that's really what we're dealing with. I'm not making this stuff up, but I don't know of a company that's been successful about going out there. Our biggest thing is military and people, coming out of criminal justice at all the major universities. And like I said, we had every major university in Alabama and Georgia and Tennessee as well.
Thank you. for
Chief,
that.
again, we appreciate, this ain't going away, okay? So the good news is, everybody at this table is committed to figuring out how to, I won't even say solve, address it and get it partially solved, mostly solved. So I wish, thanks for getting on the table today. I've begun going through some of the stuff that you've handed out. I'll probably talk with you or LaShonda about some of the additional. And we will look to have it back on the Finance Committee agenda next week. And we will hope that by that time, we've answered enough questions to bring it to a vote, to move it to council for the following week. I apologize, but we do got others. Did you jump, Mr.
Just
Fail?
one thing.
Sure.
I know y'all are all stressed out over this, but just, you can only do what you can do. So much of this is beyond your control.
Yes, sir. We know. Like I said, we're trying to do everything we do, and like the mayor says, the sense of urgency is offers will be made to officers. We just hope for something as quickly as possible to try and put a Band-Aid on this till we can get a real fix. Thank y'all for your time and your
Thank you,
consideration.
Chief.
Thank you.
Mr. Fail, I'm gonna ask in advance, I know you've got a big meeting. I think it's gonna take me at least 15
That's
minutes to
fine.
get through
That's fine. We'll make it
what's
work.
left on here. And,
Anybody in this room, that clock is about 10 minutes behind. Not right.
It's 2 minutes. But you do what you need to do.
so I told Dr. Daria and Mr. Dukes yesterday, I'd keep it to 5 to 7 minutes. I'm teeing it up to be about that. Item number 2 on our agenda today, authorization to disperse District 1 improvement funds. Councilor Wilson.
Yes, sir. I'm requesting to support the Backpack Coalition. They do wonderful work in supplying school supplies, backpacks to children of all ages and some college students. And I wanted to share this experience. I know that it is not a lot, but it is something that can help them as they continue their work within our communities. They're in all of our schools. Some of the schools are in my district. Some of those kids would be benefited, and I wanted to use some of those resources.
I volunteered 2 hours for them yesterday, so I'm.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Disbursement of District 1 improvement funds is approved. Item number 3, authorization to disperse District 2 improvement funds. Ms. Howard.
Yes, I would like to invite you all to my annual backpack giveaway. And it's not just a backpack giveaway. We have select school supplies. We're gonna have free food that will be catered by Spades. We have, I got a call from the
They bringing
McDonald's.
those lamb chops?
I don't know if they're gonna
You
bring the lamb
need to make
chops.
sure that.
Yeah. I don't know if they can hook that up on the food truck, but
Oh, yeah.
it's gonna be a fun day. You're gonna have bouncy houses, food, face painting. We have DJ Tank coming So it's going to be a great time for the community to come out and get some, have lunch with us and get some resources that they're going to probably need before school starts, along and also with the backpacks and school supplies. And the McDonough Hughes Center called me today, and I actually had some community members to drop off more school supplies. So we are looking forward to a great event. We plan for about 250 kids, and so we always run out. So anybody that's interested, please come out. But that's what my District 2 disbursement funds are for. And then on August the 6th, I will be having another event hosted by some community partners where we will be giving away shoes, brand new shoes to individuals, and I am going to give away about 15 pair of brand new shoes to individuals that sign up for them, but I'll be bringing you all more information about that event at a later date.
All right, thank you.
Motion approved.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, disbursement is approved. Item number 4, Ms. Standridge, General Fund Budget Revision, number 18.
Yes, good afternoon, council.
Good afternoon.
The attached is for general fund budget revision number 18, that's on page 5 of your packet. This is a $12,000 budget revision request for sale of property when we have vacated York Street. We received that property acquisition payment from the new owners of the street, and we are requesting to put it into land purchases for the acquisition of a new piece of property that's located on Rice Line Road Northeast.
That is the additional paperwork that was on top of your packet, is the map and the description of the property.
Okay,
This is the top of the assignment.
go ahead, Ms. Standridge.
So it's a $12,000 in and out. There is no change to the contingency or the bottom line of the general fund. And then like Vicki said, there's the property descriptions in the packet.
Okay,
Motion approved.
Second.
all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, item is approved. Dr. Derry, Mr. Dukes, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you all for having us
And
here.
welcome to your entourage.
Thank you for having us here. On behalf of the school system and our board members, some of our representatives are here. We want to say thank you to the council for your partnership and your support. We are going to stick to the 6 minutes we were given. First, want to say
I'll wiggle
thank
for you,
you.
Dr. Dyer.
If you hear nothing else, Mr. Duke is going to open the budget so you can see where we are. But since meeting with you all last time and several times before then, your city schools, we're making progress. We're not where we need to be. We still have a long way to go. But we have more students in dual enrollment than we've ever had before. Arts and music is thriving. Our athletics program is building. We are making progress, and a lot of that progress we can attribute to the support from the city and council. So we say thank you very much. I want to be straight with you. You're aware that we have 3 schools that were previously on what was called the failing school list. Central Elementary made significant enough growth to get away from where it was. Bryant High School and Westlawn Middle School made in modest to slight growth, but they've got a plan. We know what the issues are, and they're working on it. Our reading scores took a little bit of a dive from our previous year. Again, we know exactly what it attributed to that, and our schools have clear direction on what they're doing. So that is where we're heading. Again, a lot of your support has allowed us to do those things that we've talked about. Mr. Duke is going to open up the budget so you can see exactly where we are, and we'll kind of conclude with what that allows us to do in the city schools.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
Jake?
Thank you, Dr. Derry. Glad to be here. Busby told me a couple days ago 8 minutes, then he just said 6.
I'll
So
give you
before
a
that
bu-
becomes
you-
4, I'm
You
gonna
be
get
careful
going.
what you wish
Give them
for.
8 minutes there. Don't take
Be
them-
very
don't
careful
take
what
them
you
minutes.
wish for.
We got 2 more hours of meeting.
So
Just
just
important, right?
Just a brief overview, a look at our student count over the last few years. And we got, of course, 21 academic campuses, 1,600 employees, run 180 bus routes daily. And our student count is 1.4% of the total students in the state. So we got a lot going on. Any given day with 11,000 students, we've got 10% of the population of the city in our school buildings. So a brief look now at our sources of funds. You'll see that the heavy part of it is from our what's called the State Foundation Program, the state of Alabama. The federal, that number's inflated a little bit right now because we've got some CARES funds in the realm. Those will end in about 15 or 16 months. I'm going to drill down on the next slide just briefly about the county amounts. And those amounts are comprised of mainly sales tax and property tax. So that's the ad valorem tax on property, and then the sales tax. And that's what we call our local funds. Our expenditures are intensive on instruction. Here's a look at our last year's general funds, and you'll see instructional services and instructional support services comprise over 70% of our total expenditures in our systems. Of course, operations and maintenance is next. That's the air conditioning, heating, and the power bill and those type things. The auxiliary services, that's a kind of a school system name for transportation. That's your school buses. And then we're proud that general administrative expense there is as low as it is. It's below the 5% recommended by the state superintendent of education. We continue to track that monthly.
So, what is the, say, instructional services? Over at the vertical axis, it's at, what, 55 million?
That's right.
And then it goes down. What's transpiring there?
Well, instructional support services would be somewhere around 20,000, or excuse me, 20 million.
So Mr. Duke, will you tell us the difference between, well, the who of the instructional services, who does that, as well as who does the support services, so those who don't understand that will kind of get a gist of it?
I think the easiest answer is instructional services, the big number on the left. Think teachers in the classroom. The support services would be everything basically other than custodial, bus drivers, think principals, assistant principals, counselors, those type things.
Gotcha.
We have over 800 teachers.
Okay, so that line, those lines as they slope down, that's not representing a change, correct?
Correct. Those are data points
Okay. And the only points that matter
or data lines.
are
That's
here,
right.
here, there, and there?
That's right.
Okay, all right, sorry. Go ahead.
And I would like to touch on, you see capital outlay. We had an intensive capital plan back in 2015, 16, 17, where we built new buildings, update. And so therefore, we're not spending a lot in that area because of our capital plan. And Mr. Crow may be familiar with that. So moving along.
By the way, you can see from our composition, when you finish the school board, you get to come be on the finance committee.
I hear you.
That's what it was.
That's it.
Mr. Wilson, this may a little bit further answer your question
Yes, sir.
about our general fund budgeted salaries. They're intensive on teachers at 59%. And then there you see the other categories. So this may better answer, that's a great question. And so all the other being, again, that 29% under all other being custodial staff, bus drivers, those type positions. I mentioned our local funds, which again are ad valorem tax and sales tax. Those funds are used to fund a lot of these things. These things you see on this slide here are not, some of them are not funded at all by the state funds, and all of them are not fully funded by state funds. Therefore, we use local funds to supplement all of the things that we do here locally in Tuscaloosa City Schools. You see Elevate, we appreciate Elevate's just a great thing and is doing a lot of good for a lot of students. Heard a lot about CARES Act. I won't go through all of these. That's what some of the CARES Act money, most of that money is earmarked. We've had a little flexibility as far as personnel. That's allowed us to temporarily build up our local general fund. Again, those funds go away in about 15 or 16 months.
So Jay, once those funds go away, how will you sustain the personnel that you have, or what is the plan for that to keep those personnel that they're needed?
Excellent question, and therein lies a huge question for this system going forward in the future, and we we will be having a lot of conversations coming up soon about that subject right there. That's a
And I think, and the reason I asked that question because I think it's important that the public understands where we are with that and what the implication and the impact potentially will be if resources are not given and what the impact will be if resources are given. I think they need to know both sides of that.
Mr. Wilson, you've touched on something I heard the mayor say earlier, that the three biggest events since he has been in office, I think coming up in the next few years for the city school system will be some landmark decisions that our community will have to make. Let me just say this on this COVID slide briefly, and a lot of you probably know this, but we got a temporary break for about 3 to 5 years when we were closed. We saved some money, put it in the bank. We got some CARES Act funds. We were able to strategically maneuver some of those, put that savings in the bank. But that day's going to come to an end. Not right now, not next year, but that day's going to come to an end, and we'll have some landmark decisions to make to your question.
Yes, sir.
This is just a recap, and there at the bottom, I've got a few data points on some things that we are spending more money on than ever as far as kids and support of those kids and programs. And I'm going to go to the next slide. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Daria just to hit on a couple of things on some of these slides of our kids.
Yeah, so, Mr. Wilson, I appreciate that question. We are in the process of having to look at our budget priorities moving forward. When you look at our overall financials, and Jay will conclude with that, you'll see a fairly decent reserve. That reserve is there purposely to help us sustain for a brief period of time the services we have. But we are at a position where our current, we're having to evaluate our revenues are exceeding, our expenses are exceeding our revenues. So we have to examine that as a school system. Your allocation and the local support we have for education allows us to do the things you see here. We have more nurses than we've ever had out of pure necessity. I'll give you an example. We will have a student this year who will be on a ventilator. That will require a full-time nurse with that student all day long throughout the entire day. Necessary, we can't educate the student if the student's not there, but we have more nurses than we've ever had, more social workers than we've ever had. Our arts program is well supported with your help and thriving. TCTA is our workforce development arm, and it is growing. We have added a Grow Your Own Teachers program this year out of necessity, because the same conversation that you just had with our Tuscaloosa Police Department, we're having that same conversation about educators in the teaching field. We are proud of where we are and where we're going as a school system, and your support helps us do that, and we're enormously grateful for it.
Are you seeing a shift in young teachers not wanting to be educators now?
We're seeing both a shift in the number of people going into education. The number I gave you previously is a 50% decline in 5 years in Alabama alone, and that's 2-year-old data. We're also seeing that those who go in education don't remain in education. They get to about the 3 to 5 year mark and they exit the profession. That's a national kind of movement. We're seeing it in the Tuscaloosa City Schools. We have 36 vacancies today. We likely will open school with vacancies. All of our students will be there. So we will find a way to make it happen, but we've got to go through that same examination that TPD is going through with you all.
And Jay, the 2.62 is the ask this year. You told me in our meeting that was up 2%,
That's right.
and that's because of?
The state of Alabama gave a 2% raise to the state-funded employees. We will, as we have in the past, pass that along to the local funded units as well.
Okay.
And so we would humbly ask for 2%. That's our ask today. 2% over last year's to cover the locally funded units.
And what's the special appropriation?
What's that?
The 378.
What's the special appropriation, 378?
I think that may be some pass-through money.
It's going to agency,
I think so.
like children's theater, schoolyard roots, all that.
Yeah.
So we see that there then.
Yeah,
right?
we
Yeah,
give
yeah,
it to
that's-
them, and they give it to us.
Right.
And so,
That-
Jay,
would you have Landon verify
Well,
that?
so I have that information. No, so the supplemental amount, there's 59,850 for career tech and fire for the fire science program at TCTA. There's 318,250 for pre-K funding, pre-K coordinator employed by UA.
So that goes to Elevate, right?
No, sir, that's on top of the Elevate amount. And then there is the 50,000 for the new zone initiative that we have that will be presented in the 24 budget.
For the new what, zoning initiative?
The zone initiative.
Okay, all right, we'll come back to that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure,
Mr.
absolutely.
This request, Jay, covers the raise for the teachers, right? Then we also support the payment on the 3 high schools too. Is that a separate, don't we support that? And then there's also, how much are we giving pre-K? I mean, in addition, I mean, like, what's the total amount we're giving, or y'all are asking we're giving to these schools? This isn't all of it, right? What's that number?
I don't know the number on the bond or the payment
Like,
you have on the high
$2 million.
schools, but I think you all have, that
I
doesn't.
think that rides on your balance
Right,
sheet.
right.
Isn't that
It
right?
rides on our back, okay,
Yeah.
but it's
and
on your
Elevate
back.
separate
Yes.
from that.
Yeah. Okay, that's the thing, but this is just strictly your request to keep you whole on that raise.
Right, and
For the
on what we
teachers.
call unearmarked allocation.
Yeah, and this is what we've been doing.
Sure, that's
Yeah,
right.
it's still helping these other areas.
Yes.
All right, any other questions, gentlemen?
No, sir.
Thank you very much for coming in
Thank
today.
Thank you
you.
very much. Thanks
Is there any
for
other
what you do.
business to be brought before the finance committee? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.